Welcome back to a new school year. My name is Brenda Swarzinski, and I'm excited to serve as your elementary science coordinator this year. I am here for you, the classroom teacher. Please contact me via email or phone. When searching in the recipient list in Outlook, simply put in SW and I should come up fairly quickly. I've never been more excited about the state of elementary science in our district as I am this year. Today, we'll review some of the resources available to you to do the very best job for our elementary science students. Let's get started. I'd like to start off by highlighting the resources for elementary science. If you were paying close attention last year, you probably noticed there were many boxes of science equipment being delivered to campuses last year. Each campus has over $15,000 worth of new equipment for our science labs and classrooms. Most of it was delivered last year, and there's some more to come this year. There will be some opportunities to get a review of all the new equipment, but don't wait to get into the lab and get your students hands-on. Another new resource available to us this year will be the Delta Science Readers and corresponding skill builders. Each grade level will receive 3 sets of 7 to 10 titles with correlating skill builders. These informational texts can be used to support your science content as well as be a valuable resource in your reading programs. Look for opportunities to learn more about these titles for your grade level in workshop. Backed by popular demand is our Parents Science newsletter. I will be sending it electronically in both English and Spanish should you need it. You can use it or not. If you'd like to print it out or email it to your parents, they can continue to support you and their child's learning. Look for the first one to be coming in late September. One of the biggest resources that you will find this year is Forethought. This is going to be your go-to place for all things curriculum. We are not changing the look of Forethought in any drastic way, and the content coordinators have worked very hard to make sure that it is aligned, and what you see in science looks very much like what you would see in social studies, math, and ELAR. Your time can be best spent by digging deeper into Forethought and looking for some of the resources that are there. It is your place to find all the student expectations, the clarifiers that go with those expectations, all of the resources from the district. So whether you're new to science this year or if you're a seasoned science teacher, you'll find tools to help you provide those rich experiences for your students. We have incredible resources for you to provide the very best instruction to your students. I'll be highlighting a few places that you might want to stop in at Forethought in just a little while. A couple of those resource highlights I'd like to look at include STEM Scopes. We've had STEM Scopes in the district for 5th grade for 2 years and K through 5 again for last year. If you have not utilized this wonderful resource, or if you have only utilized a bit of what it has to offer, I strongly suggest that you start here this year. Every teacher should or will have a login for STEM Scopes, and there are more than enough activities that integrate science with math, writing, reading, as well as doing those hands-on investigations. STEM Scopes is an excellent resource. It can be used online in your classroom. It can be used individually in computer labs with the students, and there's also aspects that you can print out and simply use in the classroom. EduSmart is another wonderful resource that we have loaded on the district server. I'll be highlighting how to access that if you don't already know and have a shortcut on your desktop. This is another great place to introduce a new concept to your students. It has lots of great visuals and videos. If you've not utilized this, I strongly suggest that you check it out this first 6 weeks. Ames books were delivered to the campuses for K through 5 last year. Depending on your grade level, there are 1 or 3 of these teacher guides. They are probably housed with last year's team leader. These provide excellent hands-on and content-specific resources for students, and they are tightly aligned to our student expectations. Again, the activities are housed actually in Forethought, so you can take a preview. If you want to actually do the activities, you'll need to locate the book and make copies for your instructions, and you can take it from there. Another great teacher resource is called Gateways. We have these available, 1 teacher edition per grade level per campus, and these were delivered again last year. Again, if you are looking for a very clear guide to how to provide those hands-on, that 5E inquiry science instruction for your students, this is a great place to start. So between STEM Scopes, EduSmart, Ames, and Gateways, you should find something that that is a good fit for your needs. So let's talk about a couple of things. I don't remember or have a STEM Scopes login. Please email me. I will be serving as your coordinator and site person for STEM Scopes, and I can easily get you your login or remind you of what it is if you don't have that. You might be new to the district and you don't know how to use STEM Scopes. You can go into Workshop. There's a short e-course that will show you an overview of how to use STEM Scopes. Or once you get into the program, if you go to the help section, there are short and very efficient videos that show you how to use the program and load your students. Again, there will be some offerings if you're new to the district or if you have never used STEM Scopes before. Just keep checking your email and Workshop for some of those offerings if you need a face-to-face for that. So you might be interested in using those Ames and Gateway books, but you're not really sure where they are. Well, there's 1 per grade level per campus, so you might want to check with last year's team leader first. They might be housed in the science lab, or you might check with your campus science facilitator. Maybe your need is just getting started in your planning. I would suggest that you check in Forethought. It's going to have what you need, give you an idea of the scope and sequence, and give you some places to get started. We're going to be highlighting that in just a few minutes. So again, please utilize me as a help for you this year. Let me know how I can help you. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can, come and do a visit to your campus to help you out one-on-one. My goal this year is to put many more of the short e-courses in Workshop so that you can get the information that you need when it's convenient for you. Curriculum previews, how to use STEM Scopes, how to access and use some of the equipment that we have, are all going to be developed into short e-courses, and they'll be housed in Workshop. And those will be available to you to use 24/7 whenever it fits your schedule. So let's take a second to take a quick break, and then we're going to access Forethought a little bit more quickly and see what we have available to use. So we've been sitting a little while. I think it's time for us to try a brain break. Brain breaks have been used by teachers for many years to help re-energize their learners. The brain break that we're going to try today is going to really cross that midline of your brain, that line that separates the left brain from the right brain. Brain researchers know that anytime you can get learners to cross that midline, you're going to help make those connections a little bit more strong and really awaken the brain for more learning. So let's get started with a quick brain break. This brain break is called Wiggly Fingers, and it can be done either sitting down or standing up, so make yourself comfortable however you'd like to do this brain break. And it's very simple. You're going to start by holding your arms straight out, palms up. Then you're going to cross your wrists and put your palms together. And then finally, you bring your arms up and out like the model is showing. Once your hands are crossed, you can have a partner point, but don't touch, a finger, and then you try to move it. It's a little bit more difficult than it seems. We're going to take about 1 minute to do this quick brain break, wiggly fingers, either alone or with a partner, either standing up or sitting down. So let's take 1 minute to take a break. Okay, we're going to start transitioning back to the presentation now. So if you'll make your way back to your seat. We're going to start off by talking about the Release STAR test that just came out this last month. And we have a little guest with us here to tell you how awesome you are. Okay, all right, let's talk about the Release STAR. I have just a few things I want to talk to you about. We're not going to go into the test super in depth, but there's a couple of things that I wanted you to know. You can access the Release STAR test for science as well as the other tests, grades 3 through 8, online at TEA. The STAR release dates for those tests was August 5th, so they've just come out recently. The district will keep these items in the test secure from student access until we have time to review those thoroughly, really doing an in-depth line item analysis and taking a look at how our curriculum is really aligning with what those students are being asked to do on the test. So we will not be using the release tests as benchmarks this year. But teachers are definitely encouraged to use those release tests to analyze their campus performance data so that you can fine-tune your instruction. So the morning of August 5th, I was very excited to print out the release test and to really dive into it. I spent several hours analyzing the test data as well as the contents of the test, and I'd like to hit just a few highlights with what I found with you today. So we're going to start with some data, but I will definitely keep it light. Down in the bottom right hand corner, you will see the satisfactory and advanced levels for this year. So to meet that satisfactory level, students had to get 66 to 92% correct. And for an advanced label, they would have to have hit 93 to 100% correct. If you remember, the STAR has different levels of performance that'll be phased in over the next few years. So the satisfactory and advanced levels that you see on the screen will be in place for this upcoming year. But the satisfactory level will change in the 2014-2015 school year to 77%. So students would have to achieve that particular percentage to get labeled as a satisfactory performance on that. So let's start off with the state results. So in the state, fifth graders on the science STAR test, 73% met that satisfactory level and 11% met advanced. So let's take a look at our district data. By comparison, Birdville, fifth graders on the science STAR, 76% met satisfactory and 13% met advanced. So just a quick shot to see where we're starting. So one of the things that I really wanted to look at is the work that students are doing in the classroom that's reflected in our curriculum, does it really match up to what they're expected to do on the Science STAR test. So that was one of the things that I was looking at in my analysis of the test. So I want to share just a few highlights of what I found. The first thing I did was I looked through all of the questions. There were 44 of them on the Science STAR, and I looked at the number of questions with a process skill TEK combined with a content TEK, and I call these combo questions. So these would be questions that would be obviously much more challenging than just a particular one TEK that would be, or one standard that would be focused on. So when we're looking at these combo questions, there were a total of 44 questions on the release test, and out of those questions, 25 of them were what we consider to be combo questions. So that represents more than half of all of the questions, 57%. The next thing I looked at was I was really interested to see what the graphics were like on the test. So my next analysis was looking at the number of questions with diagrams, graphics, or pictures. So I just simply went through each one of the questions, and if it had a diagram, a table, a graphic, or a picture, I counted that in this particular data point. So out again of those 44 questions, 31 out of the 44 had some sort of visual that went with it, and that represents 71% of all the questions, which was very high. So within this particular analysis, I focused in on just the number of diagrams to interpret. So I went through the questions, and if it had a graphic, I looked to see, is that graphic tied to answering the question? So does the student have to know how to interpret that particular graphic, that diagram, in order to answer the question? So out of those questions, there were 23 out of 44 that had a diagram that students had to interpret. So that represents more than half of all of the questions. This is again just kind of an interesting view to look at the test through. Again, reflecting back when we give our students their work, when we present what they need to be doing, does it reflect this type of representation? Does the curriculum present this type of representation? So this is something that we'll be looking at in one of the very powerful tools that the release test can give us. The next part of the test I want to talk about is referring to vocabulary, and we have our friend Sheldon here to help us remember how important it is to use correct terms. So diamonds don't shine, Rihanna. It's refract light like a diamond. And I'd like to use this illustration point to really point out that the words that teachers use and students use, they really do matter. So let's take a look at some of the vocabulary and terms that popped up on the test the most. I went through the test, and I was looking for keywords that kept popping up over and over again, and I found some interesting results. I was quite surprised at the number of times that some of these words came up. The words that I'm going to show you that came up, I consider these to be and call these fuzzy words with my students. And these are words that they may know, they can say them, they could probably use them in a sentence, but if they were really to define them clearly, they might be hard-pressed to do that. So an example of these words that kept coming up on the test was the word diagram. That showed up in some form or another, that particular word on the test 7 times. Another word that I found that came up quite a bit was produce, any form of this word, produce, producer, producing. That came up 6 times. The word investigation was in the test 5 different times. Source 4 times. Cycle 4 times. And observe 4 times. Now I put these words up on the screen not so that you will jot them down and hammer those words into your student. It just really provides, I think, a very interesting perspective that how well do your students know what those words are? If they are coming up and they're important words in those questions, how well do they understand what that particular word actually means? Can they visualize what that means? Can they think of an example of what that means? So we're not going to get too far into the questions specifically on the test. You're welcome to take a look at those online on TEA's website. But I do want to talk about question number 17. This was the most missed question on the test. And just before we take a look at it, I want to give you a little bit of background information on that. Question 17 is a combo question of content and process skills. And the two TEKs that this one covered was 5.7a, exploring the processes that led to the formation of sedimentary rocks and fossil fuels. So there's that content piece. In addition to 5.2a, which was analyze and interpret information to construct reasonable explanations from direct and indirect evidence. So this question represents both of these TEKs in one. To just kind of give you a perspective of how our students did on this particular question, 41% of our district students in 5th grade chose the correct answer, but 59% did not. So just a little bit of background about question 17. Okay, so here's question 17. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to take a look at it, and what I'd like for you to do is discuss this with a shoulder partner or some people around you, and then we'll talk about some takeaway messages. Okay, so hopefully you've gotten a chance to talk with some people around you about this particular question. Again, as you go through the test and you take some time to do a line item analysis and take a look and see how your students performed on a particular question, this is really powerful information for us to really fine tune and see where we need to make some changes in our instruction. There's no doubt that this is an extremely challenging question. And I think the question at the top of the screen really deserves some thought process there. And it's important for us to see, and I'm happy for the opportunity to see what our students are asked to perform on these STAR tests. Okay, so let's talk about some takeaway messages just as we took kind of an overview of the test. These might be some places to start as we think about our instruction for science this year. I think continuing to visit the standards clarifiers that are in Forethought is an excellent place to keep going back to. Even if you are a seasoned science teacher, continuing to really look at unpacking those standards and seeing what are we asking our students to do, and is this activity really hitting what they need to do. I think that that's still a really excellent tool for us to be using this year. Another thing that might be helpful is to make sure that the process skills are being integrated several times throughout the units all year long. If you remember, those combo questions represent quite a large portion of the questions that are on the STAR test, and those students need to be using those process skills in many different applications. We'll talk a little bit more about where you can find those in Forethought in just a moment. Use vocabulary terms that go with the unit and insist that your students use them in their writing and discussions. The more that you model using them in your terms as well as the information that you present, and insisting that they use them as well, is really going to continue to help make those connections. Vocabulary for each one of the units can be found in Forethought. There's a list of them there, as well as in STEM scopes. That is something that comes up right away when you start to look at the different scopes to use. So those vocabulary terms are pretty easy to find. Finally, be aware of how much your students are interpreting diagrams. In addition to interpreting diagrams, say for instance when they're reading an informational text, take a few minutes to really talk about what is this diagram showing us. Why did the illustrator use this particular color? Are there some graphics on there that have some meaning? Really breaking those down. In addition to, are your students creating graphics and diagrams as well in their science journals? When they're recording their investigations, encourage them to be thinking about ways to represent that graphically, as well as when they're making models. Okay, so we're going to take another quick brain break. This one will be a very short and easy one. This one you're welcome to do in your seat, or if you'd like to stand up and stretch for just a moment. And this one is called thumbs up pointer. It's pretty simple to do. We have a back and forth motion that you're going to do. So one hand is a thumbs up and one is pointing. Doesn't matter which is which. And the idea with the thumbs up pointer is that you're going to switch back and forth as quickly as you can. As you start to do this, you'll be finding yourself probably making a gun with one of your hands. Your goal is to have a thumbs up with one hand and a pointer on the other. We'll take 1 minute to try this. Okay, so as we transition back from our brain break, you're going to need a sticky note for this next part of our presentation. I have a quick quiz for you. When you're ready, if you'll number your note 1 through 3. You won't need much room. The answers will be fairly short. Okay, so we have 3 questions that we were going to take for our quick quiz, and you're welcome to discuss these answers with your shoulder partner or people around you, or you can simply just record these for your own viewing. Ready for question 1. Last year, about how much time did you spend teaching science daily? Or if you don't teach science, how long do you think your teammates spent? Take a minute to write that answer down. Okay, question 2. What is the district time frame for daily science instruction for your grade level? There were some time frames that came out at the end of the year last year, outlining time during the day for each of the content areas. So do you know what that is for your particular grade level? Okay, and finally question 3. So of that time that you teach science, what is a recommended percentage that students should be doing hands-on in classroom and lab investigations for your grade? So for instance, if you look at how much time you teach science daily, weekly, or even by unit, break that up into a percentage. What is the percentage you think students should be doing classroom and hands-on in the lab and in the classroom? So you can break that up however you would like to, by day, by week, or by unit. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the answers. So of course, question number 1 is going to vary, and surprisingly it varies quite a bit from campus to campus. So we'll move on to question 2. What is the district time frame for daily science instruction for your grade level? Well, if you teach in K through 3, that's 45 minutes daily. For 4th and 5th grades, that's 60 minutes daily. Time is definitely one of the biggest challenges that classroom teachers have. It's so difficult to try to get everything in a day. And the time frames that came out last year really will help us organize our day a little bit more, and hopefully get all of the instruction that needs to be done in front of students every single day. Question 3. So of that time teaching science, what is the recommended percentage that students should be doing hands-on in the classroom or lab investigations for your particular grade level? If you are a K through 1st grade, 80% of your science instruction time should be hands-on investigations in the classroom or the lab. If you're in grades 2 through 3, your science instruction should be 60% hands-on lab and classroom investigations. And in grade levels 4-5, of your science instruction, 50% should be hands-on classroom and lab investigations. These are recommended percentages that come from TEA, and that is something that is very difficult, I think, on a daily basis to probably try to master. So again, I encourage you to just keep this particular percentage as a guideline for you. And you might think about this as your whole unit. Can I get 50% of my time with my students in this unit to be those hands-on classroom and lab investigations? You can look to the process skills to really help you figure out what you can be doing with them for that. Okay, so where do I get all these resources for this hands-on science time? As I mentioned in the first part of the presentation, if you're not utilizing STEM scopes, or you're only utilizing parts of STEM scopes, I highly suggest that you start there. I also mentioned EduSmart in the first part of the presentation. That's a really great way to start introducing some of the content and get some great visuals for your students. I'm going to talk about how to access that in just a moment in case you don't have that located on your desktop. And then again, the aims, gateways, and mentoring minds and motivation science. There will be some funds that are allocated to the campus this year for you to decide how you would like to use those particular books for motivation science, mentoring minds. So look for that resource as well. So just a quick review of how to access EduSmart. On your teacher computer, you're going to click the Windows Start button on the bottom left-hand corner. It should look something like this depending on what version you have, and it's going to be located on the bottom left-hand corner. When you click that, there should be an option for the Run window to come up, and it will be a window that you can type in the 2 slashes BISDSAN/EduSmart. Within there you'll find a science folder, a grade level folder for you, and you can select start.exe to run the program. If you right click, you can drag that shortcut to your desktop so you can easily access that. If you don't have this on your desktop yet, these instructions will be in Eduphoria in the resources page for you to use. So I'm going to wrap up today just by hitting a couple of places in forethought that might be helpful as you start to plan this first 6 weeks. When you go into forethought, one of the places that you'll want to notice is the yearly content documents, the process skills, and then under each 6 weeks has a unit that you can expand and find all kinds of resources. So I just want to hit on just a few of the places that I think might be a good place for you to get started. Just want to make you aware of what's in there. So within the yearly content documents, one of the best places that I think that a new teacher or a teacher who's new to science could go are the curriculum previews. The curriculum previews are very short videos that walk you through that particular 6 weeks, and they're located right there in Forethought for you to listen to and watch at your convenience. So if you need a quick overview of the curriculum, that's a great place to start. Currently, there are curriculum previews in for the first and second 6 weeks, and as each 6 weeks progresses through the year, there'll be one for every 6 weeks. Another place that you might find useful in the yearly content documents is the units of studies and the scope and sequence. These two documents are really going to give you an overview of what is covered in your particular grade level in science for the year. The units of study gives you that 6 weeks by 6 weeks what is included, as well as some process skills that you can bring in with the content. The scope and sequence document has the supporting and readiness standards coded on there for easy use. This might be helpful to print out and use in your PLCs as you're continuing to plan for learning. So now I have brought the yearly content documents back into its smaller view. So now I'd like to just point out the process skills. The process skills for science are located at the very top, right above the first 6 weeks. Again, these process skills should be gone through and hit on all through the year, so coming back and revisiting those is a good idea. And if you're looking for some ideas and some ways to get that hands-on time, that 50% that you're trying to make sure that students experience, this is a great place to look. So when I expand the process skills, you'll see that there's a whole list, and there's many more that are gone down off of the screen for you to pull over. These process skills are laid out. Each one has a clarifier for you to use, and they're an excellent resource for you to be able to try to get those hands-on for your students. Think about the process skills as being introduced or reviewed once, and then taken back through the year and practiced several times. Okay, so I've taken the process skills view and I have reduced that back down, and now we're back in our overview and into the first 6 weeks. And the last thing I'd like to share with you is another resource I think will be very helpful for you. It can be quite overwhelming to know where to find all of the resources and all of the information that we have for you as you begin your planning. So I want to make you aware of an area that I think will be very helpful. So if you click on the first 6 weeks, you've got the standards here, which is where you will work to pull over what particular standards you are going to do. The clarifiers are in there as well. But I want to draw your attention to unit documents. When you open up unit documents for a particular 6 weeks, you're going to see an overview of the unit, that vocabulary list that's going to be so important for us to be sure our students are using. But I really want to highlight is the resources. The resources for every 6 weeks are going to be under the unit documents. When you open this up, it's going to open up a Word file. This Word file gives you a one-stop view of the resources for each particular student expectation. Let's take a little bit closer look at what's in this document. So when we open up the resources for the first 6 weeks in 5th grade, we see a table. On the left is the student expectation. Here's a process skill that's suggested to go into the first 6 weeks. These are the required resources. These are resources that are not necessarily a requirement for you to use, but they are required for the district to provide for you. Here we have the gateways mentioned in the area that would be good in the gateways to help you with that particular expectation. The Ames book, and which one would work for you that, as well as where to go in STEM scopes. So this is a really efficient way for you to see what specifically could be used with that particular student expectation and what resources we have. The recommended resources and the suggested resources are additional places that you can go, offering excellent resources to help you fill in where you need. So I hope that you've gotten an idea of where you can find some of the great resources that we have for you in the district. I'd like to end today by asking for just a few minutes of your time with some feedback. The facilitator will be passing out a quick 10-question survey, and I appreciate your honest feedback. Feel free to leave your name off of the survey unless you have a specific question that you would like for me to get back. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention and being here, and have a wonderful year. I look forward to seeing you all.